Was he zoomed in on that?
Should I take
No,
it?
yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, you're good.
Yeah? Okay, fine. Let me do this
No,
here.
on his computer it says zoomed in.
Shavua Tov, and get ready for a good Chodesh, the month of Elul, as we prepare for Rosh Hashanah. So my story is about the power of a single action. Around 200 years ago, there lived a great Rebbe. He was known as the Holy Rizhiner Rebbe, and he had a very outstanding chassid who wanted to visit his Rebbe, and on his way traveling to the Rebbe, he had to spend the night in a krechma, like a roadside inn, kind of a little bed and breakfast kind of place, where they had a number of rooms for travelers. So he went, he paid for a room, and at midnight, this was a kind of chassid who was actually troubled and pained by the fact that we do not have a holy temple in Jerusalem. So there are a few holy people who every night cry and they mourn what we're missing and pray that we should have it rebuilt quickly. So while he was sitting on the floor immersed in his prayers, he began to hear screaming and yelling and slamming of doors, and he realized that a band of robbers had broken into this little krechma, this little inn, and they were going room to room, stealing, beating, tying people up, and it was only a matter of minutes before they would come to his room, and surely his fate would not be so good. In fact, he felt these were the last moments of his life, and therefore he turned to the Shema and prepared to say the confession prayers and the Shema that one says before they die. While he's immersed in his prayers, his door is kicked in, and he looks to the doorway, and he locks eyes with the head of the robbers. And they're both stunned. They stare at each other, and then the robber says, Yankel? And the chassid says, Moshe? Because they know each other. The chief of the robbers, Mr. Moshe, ushered everyone out of the room, told the robbers to go and untie the people and leave the premises. He'll catch up with them later. He locks the door. The two men embrace. And Yaakov says, Moshe, we were study partners. We were best friends. We spent days together studying Torah until we got married and went our separate ways. But what happened to you? You were the genius of the city. How are you here today? A thief and a murderer. What's going on? And very emotionally, Mr. Moshe says to him, you're right. We both married at the same time. We married well. And my father-in-law was very, very supportive that I should spend the rest of my life studying Torah. He promised to give us free room and board, take care of us. And I had a whole library on the second floor of the house. And I sat all day studying. After maybe 6 or 8 months of marriage, during the middle of the day, when no one ever disturbed me, there's a knock on the door. It was my wife. And she said, you know, downstairs, in the restaurant and the bar that they ran, the family ran, there's a bunch of customers that are having an argument, and they can't figure out how to fairly divide an inheritance of theirs. And I know that you're very, very bright. You've learned Torah all day. I'm sure you can figure out a way to help them. Not only will they appreciate it, but they'll pay you well. They'll probably give you a percentage of the amount under discussion. So I went downstairs, and sure enough, they had an inheritance. There was property, there was wagons, there were horses, there was cash, there was diamonds, and it was hard to divide it evenly. They couldn't figure out a way, but I was able to show them this is the value, and therefore this is a very good way to divide it among the four of you. And they were very happy. They felt it was very fair, and they actually gave me quite a large amount of money, which made my wife happy that I was being productive and contributing. And we were not living simply off the largesse of her parents. Well, this happened a second time, and a third time, and a fourth time. Every couple of weeks, my wife would knock on the door and apologize for disturbing me, but they need some help. Could I come? Eventually, it dawned on me that 4 people, how many people can they be inheriting from? Parents, grandparents, great-grandparents. How is it that they constantly have jewelry and property that needs to be divided? And I eventually realized these are a bunch of thieves. And they simply are stealing from people, from travelers, entering houses, murdering. And that's why they have to divide all this interesting material. I didn't want to be part of it, but I rationalized to myself that I'm simply an accountant. I'm just doing the math. I'm not stealing, I'm not robbing, I'm not killing, I'm not hurting. And so I kept doing it. And it became a very, very frequent event. I would be called down to help them divide, get paid my percentage. And it obviously bothered me and distracted me, but my wife wanted it. I wanted her to be happy. I rationalized things away. And then, one fateful night while we were sleeping, there was a bang on the window, and one of the robbers was there, and he said, "We're in deep trouble. We attacked a nobleman with lots of money, but he was prepared for us. He had many armed men on his side, and we're struggling in the forest with them, and if they get us, if they capture us, we're all doomed, and you're part of this, just like the rest of us." And my wife began to cry and beg me, do something, do something. You have to save yourself from going to jail. So I grabbed a hammer, and I ran out with this robber, and I found the nobleman struggling with one of the robbers. I hit the nobleman on the head with the hammer. He dropped dead on the spot. The tide turned in the favor of the robbers, and they were victorious. They got away, and that was the end of my life as I knew it. I became part of the gang, and eventually, thanks to my knowledge, my brilliance, I became the head of the gang. And I don't know how to extricate myself, and this is it. So the good part of the story is the chassid dragged his friend Moshe. He took him, maybe he didn't drag him. He went willingly to see the holy Rishner Rebbe, who was able to turn him around and put him in a good direction. But the Torah tells us that good is at least 500 times more powerful than bad. So if you see the power of one lousy decision, of one bad action, how far it can take you, just imagine how one act of kindness, one good deed, one mitzvah, as we prepare for Rosh Hashanah, imagine how far that could take us. Have an inspiring Elul and a great Rosh Hashanah. May we be inscribed for a good, sweet year. Shavua Tov.